order at 11:01 a.m. Please be aware that this meeting may be filmed or audio recorded. These records, including our meeting minutes, may be made available to the public. Good morning. So today we're here to decide the outcome of Senate President Oscar Santiago Perez's censure petition against Member-at-Large Johnny Liu, which has compelled investigation by the Rules and Ethics Committee. And we're going to start with attendance. So Reich.
Here.
Marcelino.
Here.
Mia.
Here.
Cipher. Here. So we have a quorum with 5 members present. So I'm going to start by giving the outline for the hearing, and these are based on the procedures that we decided at our last meeting. So we will first hear from the plaintiff or petitioner, Oscar Santiago Perez, who will give a 5-minute opening statement, and then Member-at-Large Johnny Liu will give another 5-minute opening statement. Then each of you will give testimony, and you have 10 minutes each. Then we'll have 5 minutes each for Q&A, followed by 5 minutes each for closing statements. And then I didn't issue subpoenas, but I did request one statement from former Senate Secretary Jason DeHart. So we'll hear that, and then we'll move into 20 minutes of deliberations. Following deliberations, the committee will conclude one of two things. Either the committee will deem that the charges presented are well-founded and therefore report to the Senate a resolution calling for the defendant's censure or expulsion, or if the committee deems the charges to not be well-founded, the committee shall recommend to the Senate that the defendant be exonerated. Everyone's given equal time to speak in all aspects. Please don't speak out of turn. I know we can all respect each other today and have a nice, cordial hearing. The only evidence that's allowed is what was sent to me by 8 a.m. today. It's been sent out to everyone, so you will have that. The committee members can pull up this evidence at any time, but let's please just consider that as we go throughout the hearing. You can all have a blank page open for notes. You don't need to share your screens, and I'll be timing each segment as we move through. We'll start with oaths for the plaintiff and defendant. Can we use your Robert's rules?
You have to stand up. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to. Put your right hand on the
Okay.
right? Isn't it? Right hand. Place your left hand and raise your right hand. Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you are about to give to this body is the full and complete truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Oh, God.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the information you are about to give this body is the full and complete truth? Thank you. Okay, so we'll start with opening statements. Let me just set the 5-minute timer.
Primary inquiry.
Yes.
We're not interrupting an opening statements, correct? Just asking
No, I
questions.
think it's only
Okay.
during testimony that you could ask questions.
Cool.
So let's all keep that in mind. Okay. Okay, and you can start whenever you'd like.
All right, so good morning. Thank you for holding this hearing on this amazing game day. You know, school spirit is high. But yeah, so the case that I have presented before you today is a clear-cut case of falsification of a voter record. The record is clear that the defendant in this case filled out a voter record, but did not take the duty of care to ensure that it was accurate with the votes that he cast during the meeting. The rules and procedure outline that, quote, senators are required to submit accurate voting records to the Rules and Ethics Committee or Senate Secretary at each meeting of the Senate. This voter record is inaccurate. He verbally voted no on a roll call, marked down that he voted yes. If that's not inaccurate, I don't know what is. And the defendant will argue that there was no intent in this case, but the senator still has a duty of care to ensure that he submits these accurate voter records to the Senate secretaries at the end of each meeting. He failed that duty of care and negligently turned in an inaccurate voter record, and I'm certain that the committee will see it this way. I will be presenting the evidence that I have collected through the Excel sheet from the voter record that the Senate secretaries compiled, the actual images of the voter record, and the minutes of the meeting and the recording of the meeting to show the discrepancies and the inaccuracies that are present within this case. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. And now we have 5 minutes for Member at Large Lou. You can start whenever you'd like.
Let me know if you can hear me. Hello everyone, I just want to start off by saying that I was surprised by this case. I truly did not see this coming, as I've never ever tried to or even thought about purposely falsifying or messing with a voter record. I understand the weight of the work we do in the Senate chambers and the integrity that lies within the work we do would be damaged if any of our senators or Senate exec attempts to do anything in this matter. I've been in the Senate for 2 years, and like I said earlier, falsifying a voter record has never ever even crossed my mind. I truly think, I know that this was fully an accident. The last couple of months worth of Senate meetings, honestly, ever since the spring started, the Senate meetings have been absolute chaos. I think there's absolutely no structure or decorum. Motions that aren't properly made get shot in meetings whenever, and no one ever makes sure that the entire Senate body is kept up with the voter record until very recently. So I'm very grateful that we are taking the time at the end of the last couple of Senate meetings to make sure that everyone's caught up on the voter records. And not only are random motions being made and special rules are being added about whether or not we need to vote if a motion is made by unanimous consent or not, we also can't hear a lot of the motions being made. I believe a purposely forged or falsified voter record is very different from an incorrect voter record that was made by mistake. Basically, long story short, this was truly an accident that I overlooked. People were talking over each other, motions were made extremely fast. I just simply could not keep up and accidentally indicated the wrong vote on my voter record. I did not falsify a voter record, I accidentally checked the wrong box. Lastly, senators voted incorrectly on the voter record is a mistake that has happened multiple times in the past. There are even people in this room or people even still in the Senate chambers that have had incorrect voter records without being penalized because of past precedents. I do not understand why now I am being censured for just making a simple mistake. Usually a mistake like this that I made, I would assume would at most get half absence. And I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. We'll now move into 10 minutes of testimony / presentation. And we'll start with the Senate President.
Yeah. So, give me 1 moment. Alright, so let me set the scenario for you all. We had just started to begin consideration of SSB 2023-1133, which was the apportionment bill. I know it has been a point of contention, but in this case, we have gone through third readings for many bills that were on the top of the agenda, and many of these bills were tabled by the Senate, and then we got into the presentation of SSB 2023-1133, and afterwards we went into amendments for the bill itself. And so from then on, after we considered the 2 amendments that were filed, actually there were 3, sorry. No, the minutes are wrong. It says Amendment 3 when it should say Amendment 2. All right, there were 2 amendments filed, and so then previous question was called, and there was a motion to call a roll call vote by unanimous consent. That motion passed, and so we started the roll call vote, and then I noted in my filing of this case that there were about 4 or 5 senators who voted one way on the floor by verbally stating no, and then wrote down yes on the voter record. Unfortunately, these senators are all summer replacement senators, so there is no cause for me to go after them at this point, since I can't. There's no jurisdiction for this committee to review those actions. But Member at Large Lou is still a senator, so this committee still has that jurisdiction. And so we see on the minutes that the votes cast were reflective of what was cast on the floor vote, and then member-at-large Lou voted no. And I can also show you all the audio recording as well, or the live stream. Specifically, it starts at the timestamp of 3:36:20. The whole process ends at 3:40:05. That's when the entire roll call vote was conducted. The specific instance of member-at-large Lou voting no was seen at 3:38:18. You can review that on your own time or during deliberations, but I think that for the sake of time, I'm not going to present it because I recognize 10 minutes can be expended doing that process. On the voter records Excel sheet for the August 1st meeting, we see the motion move to approve Student Senate Bill 2023-1133. If you scroll down to member-at-large Lou, you see that he voted yes. Now, you start to see the discrepancy from minutes, the vote cast on the floor, and then the voter record that was submitted. And so we see here that there is a sort of falsification, and that indubitably it is inaccurate. It is inaccurate because that's not what member-at-large Lou voted on the floor. He voted no, and he should have been able to just circle no or X out no. When you see the voter record images that I have, that I went yesterday to review, the member-at-large usually either puts an X next to the vote that he wants to cast or circles it. And in this instance, he wrote down approve SSB 2023-1133, and he circled yes. And so I think that just goes to show that this is an inaccurate voter record, considering already the circumstance of him having already voted no on the floor. And I want to address the fact that there is no mechanism to really penalize these sort of things. Voting, if there is a roll call vote conducted and a senator votes one way but then marks down another thing on the voter record, there is no penalty, really. The rules and procedures only penalizes you if you submit no voter record, which I believe the rules say that it may be penalized. If a senator fails to submit a voter record, the Rules and Ethics Committee may give 1/2 absence to that senator. But an incomplete voter record, I should say, is penalized with the 1/2 absence, and it says that a committee will give a 1/2 absence. But there is no penalty really for incorrect voter records. I think that going into whether or not it should be penalized within the rules with a 1/2 absence, that goes into a matter of policy that we shouldn't be discussing. And that's why I filed the censure instead, because that's my way of seeing that this penalty can be done, since senators are required to submit accurate voter records. And so, since there's no enforcement mechanism for this, I think the censure is the only remedy forward. I didn't file an expulsion, as Minority Party Leader Alaman did at the time, against myself, because I didn't see that as I didn't see this as a case that necessitated that. I saw that a censure was more fitting because of the circumstances of this case, and I hope that the committee recognizes that as well. I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Councilmember Large Lou, you can go now. I had a little bit of a hard time
Oh, yeah,
hearing you
yeah, I
last
can move.
time. If you
Yeah, I can
want to
move.
move closer. And you can start whenever you like.
Sorry. So, according to the case of U.S. v. Bailey, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit Court, and this is evidence I submitted within the emails. The U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit Court affirmed that specific intent to falsify requires sufficient evidence that the defendant acted with intent to defraud, that is, willful participation in a scheme with knowledge of its fraudulent nature, and with intent that these illicit objectives be achieved. I had absolutely no malintent or objective with this accident. No matter what way I voted, the results would have been the same anyways. The vote that also claimed when he was filing was 49 yeses and 7 noes, I believe. So any way that I would have voted, there would have been like no impact on it. So I literally just my vote in the voter record and my voice it was just a complete accident. Like by that time during that meeting, it's like we've already heard so many bills. People were making motions to fill the bill, to pass the bill, and like I'm pretty sure like during that meeting, like you could hear Marie, like people were like asking like what are we discussing? Like what? Because sometimes you hear to fail the bill, so if you vote yes on it, it means you fail it. But then I think there's truly a misunderstanding sometimes within the Senate chambers. I think that it could definitely use clarification. And also, like I said, according to Student Body Statute 309.44 states that any student who forges or falsifies a voter record should be found guilty of an offense against the student body. That was the quote that was used in the case filed against me, but nothing that I did was to purposely forge or falsify a voter record or anything. I had no intent of impacting any decision. I didn't come into this meeting with an objective. Like my vote wouldn't have changed any decision. Like to forge or to falsify, like an example of forging or falsifying a voter record, I feel like it would be like if I were to fully forge a signature and fill out a voter record for like another senator who wasn't present, who was on the verge of getting kicked out due to attendance, and I just fill out in like attendance form. But like that is forging or falsifying. I just simply made a mistake by accidentally marking the wrong box or the wrong line because the meeting like just motions were being thrown around, and it was like people were saying things, calling recesses, calling point information. It just kind of got out of order, and I know I wasn't the only one that was confused with what motions were we voting on, what was going on. Yeah, that's my point, and I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. We'll now move into 5 minutes of questions, and we'll start with questions for the Senate President. Oh yeah, and I'll just call on you all.
So, what is the difference between forging and falsifying in the legal definition?
You're really making me pull up Florida law? Wow. But basically, Florida law states that forgery states whoever falsely makes, alters, forges, or counterfeits a public record or a certificate, return, or attestation of any clerk or registrar of a court, public registrar, notary, public town clerk, or any public officer in relation to a matter wherein such a certificate, return, or attestation may be received as a legal proof or charter, deed, will, testament, bond, or writing obligatory, letter of attorney, policy of insurance, bill of lading, bill of exchange, or promissory note, or an order, acquittance, or discharge for money or other property, or an acceptance of a bill or exchange or promissory note for the payment of money, or any receipt for money, goods, or other property, or any passage ticket, pass, or other evidence of transportation issued by a common carrier with intent to injure or defraud any person shall be guilty of a felony of the third degree, punishable as provided. Blank. I'm not going to read the other statutes. But you asked about falsification, and so falsification, if we try to find a sort of Merriam-Webster definition, which has been used within our court system, Merriam-Webster seems to read that it's a misrepresentation, especially by embellishing a true memory with false details. I don't.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I lost my train of thought. So you quoted statute 309.44. Does the statute insinuate that there must be intent in order for someone to be guilty of an offense against the student body, or simply the action itself constitutes to be guilty of an action against the student body?
Considering that the ultimate jury of this is the committee, I don't feel like my response to this is really weighty in any one way or another. But one could make an argument for both sides that you do require intent, or that you'd require that it's just the act of falsification. And I would probably go with the act of falsification for the falsifying part. Forgery can refer more so to the intent, considering that's one of the elements for forgery. But falsification is different, in my view.
Okay.
Would you say that there's principally a fundamental difference between how you cast a roll call vote versus like voice votes or unanimous consent votes?
What do you mean?
Like, as in, like, your actions of doing so. Like, you're being individually called out in a roll call vote, whereas in a voice vote, you might just say aye or nay with the people around you.
I mean, sure. I mean, there's more of an individuality aspect when there is a roll call vote. I mean, you're being called on individually, and eventually, you have to cast a yes, no, or abstain. And might I add as well, in the rules and procedures, under Rule Rule 7, the senators have a right to change their vote up until the result is announced. So if this really was a sort of mistake, there was time to correct it until, and we see as well through the timestamps, he cast his vote at 3:38:18. So I'm supposed to also believe that you have until the 3:40 mark, which means there was over a minute passed, to sort of rectify this sort of mistake. And so, I mean, I think, again, this just shows the lack of duty of care, the negligence aspect here, which I have been making in this case.
There are 20 seconds.
That's great. It's literally. Do you know if there was a period at the end of the meeting where people went over the voter records and analyzed them like we have been doing the past couple of weeks?
I frankly don't recall, but I mean,
I don't see it in the live shares pulled up. I just wanted to.
I'm not sure if it may have occurred after the meeting ended. Sorry.
Well, you're good with that, 5 minutes?
Are we moving on to questions here? Okay.
Okay, so questions for Member Large Lou?
Okay. So you cited with the Supreme Court's case. How does that relate to this case in that it had to do with... let me back up. How is that case pertinent to what we're discussing today? Because that Supreme Court case had to do with an oath of office. I fail to understand. Like, if you could just summarize it really quickly.
I just used it for the definition that they used of falsifying, or defrauding, and with that intent. I think its definition could be applied. I think that its definition of falsifying could be applied to it's a very universal definition of falsifying, and with this, it's willful participation in the scheme with knowledge of nature, blah blah blah, with an illicit objective be achieved, and I think that's what I'm being accused of basically. And I just think it was really just an accident. There was absolutely no purposeful intention at the end of this.
Okay.
Could you walk me through the thought process behind the mistake that you're claiming happened?
Yeah,
can you walk me through the timeline of what happened?
So you can see in the minutes that the meeting was already for the last couple months, it's the meetings obviously they've lasted the whole time. It's all 4 hours. So going back to having time to correct it, there really is not much time to correct it because I try to stay on top of all the voter records and all the motions, and by the time the meeting is adjourned, it's 10:59 when the meeting is adjourned. So there's really no time for it to correct it. But just to start off, it's I know like we were like debating pro con, we were going to motions, people were doing point of information, point of privilege, and like it just gets kind of lost into it. And I know specifically, I think I asked someone like in my row, like, are we deliberating on the pros and cons to fail this bill, or are we pro-conning this actual bill itself? And no one could answer that question. And that's why, like, that's where it came into a confusion for me of considerate motions. So, like, I think even, like, you said earlier, like, some of the minutes were messed up. I think you said earlier in your opening. So it's like, it just goes to show that, like, with how long our meetings are and how rapidly everything is happening and how, like, motions and everything's, like, just being thrown out, like, it can cause for, like, very simple human errors.
Joaquin?
So did it not occur to you if you were confused about what motion we were actually voting on to point of information that and be sure about what you were actually voting on?
I actually did try to stand up, but I think like someone you call on someone else and like I just sat down for that. Like someone kind of just talking about it and like y'all are going back and forth and pro con. But yeah, I like did try to stand up and ask, and I try to ask the people around me.
Tony?
I'm sorry.
Did the Senate secretaries notify you that it was a mistake, or is this like with the censure? Was it the first time that you were finding out that it happened?
I didn't know about it being a mistake or anything until I got emailed the censorship document. But yeah, do the Senate? Can I ask a question or no?
Point of information.
Okay, can I point information?
Yeah.
Okay, do the Senate secretaries usually notify you if a voter record's incorrect or incomplete or?
They haven't really marked incorrect voter records since
Okay.
last October and November when I started.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So a voter record is the purpose of a voter record is for it to reflect your votes to your constituents, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Hang on, just that was a clarifying question.
Any other questions?
So, in the circuit court case that you provided to us, it defines an intent to defraud, which is arguably different from forging or falsifying, since it inherently entails that you're defrauding another person. This is your own statements and your own votes. So, could you please explain to me better as to how defrauding entails forging or falsifying a
I
voter
think
record?
those three words kind of like they're very close synonyms to each other, like defrauding, forging, like it both like it all has to do with like lies with an intent of some type of resolution. Going into this vote, I fully had no malintent to switch or change the resolution. And like frankly, if I wanted to, which I want to make it very clear, I did not have any malintent. But if I wanted to, no matter which way I would have voted, it wouldn't have affected the outcome. So like, yeah, that's my answer. So.
Are you insinuating then that the ends justify the means, by which the way that you vote and the way that is then presented to your constituents is because it doesn't change the outcome of the vote, that it's proper in actually relaying accurate public records to our student body?
No, like I said earlier, this was fully an accident that I like just was confused in the motions and what specifically we were voting on, whether that be voting on the motion to fail the bill or the motion to pass the bill. And like that just fully an accident. There was no me trying to change how it looks to whoever. Like that doesn't, yeah, no, that's not what I was doing.
That would be so mean.
I mean, as we've seen before, Lily and her computer
Our screen's fixed.
no, true.
Apple Care.
It's
It's like a 1950s television. That's so bad.
We're on closing statements and then I'll do the statement. Okay. So 5 minutes of closing statements from the Senate President.
Wait, I thought we were supposed to review the. Sorry, I thought we had subpoenas and then.
We decided to do that. Or no, we decided to do it before closing statements.
Yeah.
You're right.
Are we counting this as a subpoena or?
I did not title it a subpoena. I just requested a statement.
Just want to vote on it. Just
Do you want to vote to hear it?
I think it's subpoena since the chairwoman actually asked for it.
Okay.
And I received it. I just didn't request their appearance. I just got it electronically.
Oh, it's do say it's
Okay.
as the possible.
Okay, so I'll read my email to Jason and then his response. Dear Jason, I'm requesting a statement from you regarding your experience with incorrect voter records while serving as a Senate Secretary. I see there were a few reflected on the voter record Excel sheet in October and November of last year, but not many since then. Could you explain this precedent and your reasoning for marking voter records as incorrect? This request is not mandated like a subpoena, but I would appreciate any statement you may be able to provide. And then here's his statement. I will gladly give a statement. During my time as a Senate Secretary, I encountered a number of incorrect and incomplete voter records. After each meeting, the exact number of incomplete/incorrect voter records fluctuated, with some senators having consistently incorrect/incomplete voter records. I am making sure to point out that an incorrect voter record is different from an incomplete voter record. An incomplete voter record is a record that was not fully filled in by the senator, and I believe a half absence would be given to the senator for not indicating their vote. An incorrect voter record can be incomplete or fully marked, but there is a mark that does not line up with the actual vote. Example, the Senate approves a bill by unanimous consent when a senator writes no on their record, making it incorrect. To me and the advising team's knowledge of the codes, there is no penalty for an incorrect voter record. Regarding records from last October and November, I cannot recall the senators with incorrect voter records and the reason as to why they are incorrect, like the example previously stated. Since there have not been many since then, I can only assume that senators have become more vigilant in keeping their records correct. Do you all want that statement emailed to you to look at?
And why not? Yeah, if you can.
I know that too as well.
Yeah, I also have.
I'm going to send it to all of you.
No, it's all.
What one gets, everyone gets.
Redistribution of emails. Wonderful. Have you always been a vest guy? I don't think I can pull it off like that. I really don't.
So that's all of you. Do you all want to look over that, or are you ready to move into closing statements?
I think I'll go close it. I think we're going to close it.
Oscar, you can start whenever you'd like.
All right. Thank you, members of the committee. And let me just finish off with this, I guess, closing statement. So the voter record is meant to serve as a reflection of the votes cast in the Senate on main motions. And in this particular vote, we were voting to approve SSB 2023-1133. And I think that at the end of the day, you have mechanisms as well to sort of be able to request information. Like, there's point of information available. If the senator or the member at large was confused as to, is this a vote to approve or fail? I mean, they could have made point of information requesting that information. I think that considering that the motion was made by a roll call vote as well, you also have plenty of time to be able to consult other people during that time period, which the member at large seems to imply that he did. Consult other people. And at the end of the day, I think that what matters most is not whether the vote changing affects the result. It's ultimately what you're displaying to your constituents as well. Because if you're voting yes on something but then voting no on record, it's showing that you seem to, or on paper I should say, it seems that my senator doesn't support this, or my senator does support this type of action. But that's sort of misrepresenting your views to your constituents. And so the case here, I think, shows that the member at large falsified his vote, but at the very least, I should say, they did submit an accurate voter record. And so voting no on a roll call and marking yes on the voter record is a clear inaccuracy of the voter record. And I think I want to also volley with you all this, that if this case does not show either a falsification or an inaccuracy, then that really just diminishes the value of the voter record. It really shows that the voter record is, again, just a piece of paper that one can mark down however they want, and ultimately goes unpunished, unpenalized. Maybe there needs to be a rules and procedure change to address the fact that, incorrect voter records exist and how to penalize it if need be, or what to do with them. But that, again, goes into a matter of policy that I don't think this committee should dwell on too much. And the committee should consider the facts that are present. And the facts are that there was an inaccuracy on the voter record for Member at Large Lou. And this censure should serve as a sort of enforcement mechanism for the rules and procedures, which require senators to submit accurate voter records. I yield the rest of my time.
Now we'll have 5 minutes.
I just want to say thank you for all your time, for being here on your very first home game of the season. I've said it over and over again during this hearing, but I simply did not forge or falsify a voter record. I had no malintent coming into this meeting. During the meeting, I was just simply confused, just couldn't keep up with all the random motions and points of information, points of privileges and recesses being thrown around and everything else going on. I can promise you that there are definitely other people in that room as well that day that were also very confused as to what was going on, what was being voted on. Even in the meeting minutes that Oscar presented, some bills were written wrong by the secretary that they considered an opening statement. I'm grateful that for this past couple of Senate meetings, though, we have allocated time at the end of the Senate meeting to catch everyone up on their voter records and make sure that everyone's voter records are correct. I think that serves like not for like a sense of comfort, like it just makes sure that everyone's like on the same page with like what they're voting on. And like I wish that we had this time allocation in all the Senate meetings back in the spring, as it would have prevented us from any confusion and resulting in us being here today. Maybe I encourage Senate exec to possibly look into this special rule that has been added for the last couple of Senate meetings and finding some sort of remedy to something like it to prevent something like this in the future. I want to use something that actually the past Senate Secretary said in his statement. He states that an incorrect voter record can be incomplete or fully marked, but there's a mark that does not line up with the actual vote. For example, the Senate approves a bill by unanimous consent, but a senator writes no on the record, making it incorrect. And he said, to my and advising to his knowledge of the codes, there's no penalty for incorrect voter record. Oscar kept on saying the word inaccurate, and I think with the direct synonym to inaccurate is incorrect. So, and I think based on precedents, this case isn't valid because there was no form of penalty or punishment for an incorrect voter record. Like I said, it was fully just an accident. I still stand by the fact that I did not falsify or forge a voter record. According to the statement made by the past Senate Secretary, it was just simply like an incorrect or inaccurate voter record. I truly am hopeful that all members of this committee will set aside any biases that they may have entered this room with and understand that this was just an honest mistake. And it was just that, a mistake. I had nothing to gain from purposefully or maliciously lying on my voter record and would like each and every member of this committee to understand that. I've been a part of the Senate body for almost 2 years now, and I would never do anything to violate its integrity. And I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, committee members are the only people that will speak throughout these 20 minutes. I'm going to let you all just speak among yourselves and not call on you unless it gets out of order. And we start those 20 minutes now.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Yeah, I just want to preface this that I'm kind of getting alarmed with the voter record situation that we have going on, the incomplete and incorrect voter records. Like, if you go in the past year since I've joined Senate, and I've been in Rules and Ethics for most of it, the amount we've seen is incredibly, incredibly high. And the complaint, like, as the meetings get longer, I feel like it's just more and more likely that the newer senators are going to have issues, that senators in general are going to have issues. And I do believe that these mistakes and accidents detract from our ability to accurately represent our constituents, because it just adds an extra layer of, like, no, I don't want to say stupidity, but like accidents. And I think that that's something we definitely need to talk about in the future meetings as well. But yeah, I just wanted to preface it with that.
I mean, I entirely agree with you, Senator Reich. And I do believe that we do make very honest mistakes within the chamber. And seeing as my previous votes on this committee have erred on the side of leniency, I don't believe that the member at large should be expelled. However, we should address this sort of like custom or like this sort of like status quo that we're just gonna let incorrectness and like the way that we present to our constituents just slide. I think that we should at least bring forth a statement to the Senate in order to encourage people to be more diligent in how they fill out their voter records in order to be more accurate, especially because we are public officials and we have a duty towards the entirety of the student body, not just to ourselves or just to a piece of paper, and just to be able to just show them how we are representing them in the Senate body. And so, whilst I believe that the censure is appropriate in regard to actually stating that we shouldn't be doing these things and that we shouldn't be letting how we present ourselves like to the student body slide in regard to inaccuracies. However, I do believe that, again, expulsion is not something that we should be considering. It's a bit extreme in that sense.
Yeah.
Expulsion?
Yeah.
It's like a hypothetical.
Oh.
He's like saying like,
I mean,
analyzing.
because like you
Technically, it would have been within.
Well, there would have needed to be a petition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say, I thought this was just this. Yeah. It was just
Surprise.
a censure, not kicking anyone out.
Enough.
Yeah. It's like, wait a second.
Yeah. So I was looking at a lot of the voter records, like the Excel sheets. I have it downloaded from 2022, as well as the spring. And I think that if we were to censure today, it would be kind of like making an example of someone, and I don't really think it's a good idea. And if that's not the case, then we would need to go back and have to censure every member in the past who's currently in Senate who voted inaccurately during this term. And I think that would be a major overstep of decency, and it would be ethically unclear on whether that would be a good idea. So for me, the choice is between making an example of someone or censuring the entire Senate, and I don't think that either of those are good ideas, and I think that we need to definitely reconsider what we want to do here. So that's a major concern that I have.
Well, I think I understand the concerns of the senator. However, I think that's a bit of a slippery slope there in regard to like just one censure equals that we're then censuring the entire Senate. In the way that our government works, there is a sort of statute of limitations, just because in like ex post facto. And so I mean, whilst we may have let it slide beforehand, just because we're now addressing it now, doesn't mean that the precedence of letting it slide should affect how we then look at the facts that were presented to us in regard to the petitioner and the respondents' evidence that were given to this committee. And so, as the chairwoman stated before, to look at the evidence and the presentations that were given within this committee and that were forwarded to us at 8 a.m. today, rather than, I would say, speculation of what the history of the Senate was before.
Can I ask a question?
Point of information.
Point of information. Yeah. How exactly did the Senate secretary sit there and like look at the meeting and then cross-reference it with everyone's voter records? Like, how was this found out?
So I think the past incorrects were mostly what Jason said in his statement, where someone would vote no on something passed by unanimous consent. It seems like that either hasn't happened since November or they just stopped doing that. It was always incorrect and very unclear to me. I didn't know what it was at first until they told me it's not listed in the codes, which I think it should be. Because there's just not any outlined recourse for it right now. It's just a pretty big gray area.
I will also say I know the Senate secretaries do go back into the video to make sure the minutes line up. So if for whatever reason, like, they're not mandated to do a double check, but like if they hear something like, wait a minute, that name, I just looked at their voter record, it might come up. So I mean, it is a gray area, like the chairman says.
Okay. We have 15 minutes left.
I mean,
So, the one thing I want to say is that I know the Senate president prefaced this by like saying he didn't want to talk about it, this meeting with the penalties. I do think that as a committee, this is something that directly affects our way of conducting business. And I really do think that we should begin either extending the penalties for incomplete voter records to incorrect voter records, and I don't believe that the incidence of this should count for nothing, because this is an obvious concern for any senator, any party, anywhere, because at the end of the day, voter records are our public face. But the fact is that on the books, there's nothing about incomplete or incorrect voter records. And I think that as a precedent, we should definitely look into that. But going off of the complexity issue that the senator mentioned, if you look at the recording, there's no clarification of the voter record. And in the past, especially when I first started Rules and Ethics, there were a lot of senators who, before we started doing these like periods of clarify, where you would just see the senators accumulating absences or accumulating errors due to lack of explanation. And I think that's an issue in itself, and obviously it's not really as much of an issue with the period that we've been allocating. And again, I've been following what you've been working on with Senator DeLynn with the electronic voting records, and I'm very optimistic on that. I think that that's going to be an amazing thing for the efficiency, for efficiency's sake. We'd have no job left. But and I do think at the end of the day that this incident, like the majority of the incidents that we've heard regarding absences, regarding inaccuracies, incorrect statements, comes from complexity and comes from a lack of understanding. And I think that at the end of the day is the core of the problem, and I just don't think it warrants the making of an example of someone for a censure in this specific instance.
So after hearing all of this, I mean, I have other policy remedies and whatnot, and I have my hot takes about whether or not voter records should really be a thing, but that's a different point to talk about. For me, this just goes back and forth of whether 309.44 is insinuating that there has to be some like intention or not, because depending on how you read it, because it is kind of vague to an extent, is that simply the action of messing up is an offense against the student body, or the intent and execution of that actor is an offense of the student body. I honestly don't have an answer for that. If we're going to go in the technical, like judicial aspect of whether or not this is guilty or not, but I do want to echo the point of like kind of opening Pandora's box. In the spring, there were errors and whatnot for people's voter records, so I'm not entirely sure if you want to open that box or even if it would constitute that. I'm more like, I don't know what to think, to be honest, in this current situation. I honestly don't like voter records in general. Like, I think it's kind of a redundant thing, but that's more of a policy matter. I'm more or less kind of split on this entire thing.
So, point of information, if you could pause my time. As the Rules and Ethics Committee, would we be allowed to, in this specific setting, would we be allowed to, and if either of you know, please correct me, would we be able to, since this is a Rules and Ethics meeting, would we be able to give an absence for this error, or give a half absence for this error as a remedy? Because I think that is it our discretion, or is it?
I don't think a half absence could necessarily be a remedy like tied to the censure. I think it's something that would have to be discussed with the Senate secretaries because they're the ones that deal with the voter records to be completely unbiased. So I think, because it's not technically incomplete, so like per the codes, there
Is there any discretion?
is nothing saying we have to. I think we could vote to have absence for that, but that is something I would want to check with the advisor and with the Senate secretaries and probably the Senate executive board as well, because it's not really clear.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, I'm honestly erring towards not a censure, but I do not think that this should be like, oh, no censure, nothing happens, because that would be not doing my duty.
Do you want to go back into deliberations?
Oh, sorry, yeah, that was deliberative.
Good.
Point of information, like in what past circumstances has like a censure been given?
Like actually, like implemented on the floor.
Like pass?
Yeah.
I've never seen
Never.
one.
Like there's been proposals for it, like a couple of them, but none of them actually gotten out of committee.
Okay.
Or maybe one has way back when. But I don't think it's passed.
Okay.
We have 11 minutes left.
Well, I do agree that there is some sort of complexity within the Senate chambers, like the actual stating the question and understanding like how to better phrase the question and when we vote. However, as the senator pointed out before, there is no codification for a lot of things, such as an incorrect voter record, such as there's no codification for that there should be time allotted for us to actually fix our voter records. It's basically in terms of like custom and informal like rules that we do have as the Senate. And so basically the censure is not exactly to make an example out of member at large Lou, but rather serve as a warning, a future warning to all the other senators that we should be a bit more dedicated in our duty to making sure that we do these things more accurately. And like there are points of remedies for these kinds of things, like asking a question for what this is, what are we voting on, because like this is an active way of actually voting. You're being called on and asking how you want to vote, and not being knowledgeable about what you're voting for is like sort of goes on into like your actual duty as a senator. And so, as I said before, I don't think we should recommend expulsion in regards to the censure, but I do believe that there should be recommendations for some sort of penalty for this in regards to actually upkeeping or fixing the status quo that we have and making sure that we treat the voter record, since right now we don't have a remedy for that, as something that we should be dedicated to accurately representing yourself.
Is using the censure as a warning to others in the future not the definition of an example?
Well, I don't think so. Because, like, for me, an example is using the member at large as in and of himself, but rather we're using the censure as a means to the censure itself, the actual document, not the member at large, as a way to show that we shouldn't do these things. But
Yeah, but it's going to be at the end of the day, it is attached to his name. It's attached to his record. It's, I don't know. So,
I'm going through the rules and procedures.
yeah,
right now.
I really wanted me to know what we can and can't do, because at the end of the day,
Because I feel, I mean, I kind of am leaning towards your direction of like, if we were somehow able to just say, give him a half absence and call it a day, that would be better. But I mean, I'm still looking through rules and procedures because I'm like, I mean, obviously expulsion is out of the question.
is it like an implied right?
Because I feel like rules and ethics should have that discretion, but at the same time, I have yet to find anything saying explicitly, so this is a gray area of gray areas.
Well, I guess in motions we could say like a recommendation that this happen upon approval from the secretaries and whatnot.
I mean, because we do give recommendations right to the floor about absences, right? I don't know. I mean, and I'm still split on whether or not on the censure itself, to be honest. So that's where I am, at least. case.
Yeah, there wasn't really a lot of information in this case. It's kind of just what we can do.
Because it keeps everything I see in the codes and the rules and procedures like it has to be accurate. It has to be accurate. It has to be accurate. Otherwise, you're like,
Or what?
yeah. Otherwise, it's an offense against the student body. Which, okay, sure. What does that really amount to?
Again, we're
If a
we're
senator
like the
fails to
jury.
submit a voter record, the Rules and Ethics Committee may give 1/2 absence to that senator. That doesn't say you fuck it up. So to speak.
Is there anything saying we can't do it? That's not how the law works, but
I mean, after we can write something.
I would think the only way to actually recommend doing that is actually having a formal, like, saying that we shouldn't do these things, because how else would we then recommend, like, a half absence if it's not in the codes, you know?
Like, I don't know if it could be structured like an appeal, or like the opposite of an appeal.
what?
Isn't it,
Like the opposite of an appeal.
I mean, isn't this the opposite of a bill?
But like,
I mean,
you
like,
guys talk.
At the end of the day, later on there's some policy remedies that definitely have to be considered, like changing how this would work, or changing how voter records work, whether it's electronically or it happens or there's some other thing.
I think the system is so screwed
is there a way to not specify the senator in the censure?
What?
No.
I mean, at that point, just putting out a statement.
I guess, yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
I
you
mean,
could give that in your
I mean,
committee
a censure is
That could be like a resolution that we write as the Rules and Ethics Committee.
I suppose.
What are you supposed to?
There's nothing saying we can.
I'm deliberating.
No, deliberate,
I'm deliberating. Because, like, it does just say a censure is an official warning by the Senate. It
So
doesn't
would you
mean-
like a general censure directed at no one?
Yes. If we're erring on the side of not making the member at large an example,
I mean, that's a weird. I mean,
I think that I would be more amenable to a resolution because I don't really understand how that works, and I feel like it would have the same desired effect.
yeah, you're just changing the title from a censure to a resolution. I mean, like you're dealing with semantics at this point.
Sorry. It's my judiciary brain working.
Oh my god, I love having you on that committee because you're like the dictionary of like format. It's amazing.
So, I guess the question is, do we have the power in this hearing to even give? Because work with me. Hear me out on this. So you have expulsions at the top that we could do. In theory, we can't do that because that wasn't asked of us. Then we have censure, which was asked of us, and then half absences and absences and then half absences. Could we do in our jurisdiction instead say this doesn't amount to a censure, but instead just amounts to half absence instead? Because in theory, we do have the power to dish out half absences and absences. So
As punishment?
As a punishment, potentially? I mean,
Do you in the motion, if after this in a motion that I'll write out so everyone could like see it, or like so you could write out, do you want to say upon clarification and approval from the Senate Executive Board and the SG advisors, this is what will happen? Because
You mean Senate secretaries, not the executive board?
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless
Oh, the
chair.
chair. The chair
Run.
woman.
I mean, I guess we could do it, and then if they don't want it, they don't want it.
because I don't want to like commit, like do a big oopsie by adding this without like express consultation. But I think that it should be like a contingency, like the second they approve it, this goes on this record.
I don't want to table this, but would we want to make that something for our next meeting to address?
I want to postpone the hearing to the next
I don't want to
meeting.
postpone it, no. So, maybe
So
not.
do you want to table? So how about we vote on the censure itself, and then next meeting we make a motion to reopen.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we have like an agreement, but
Because I think we all have very similar ideas on
Yeah.
this. Because
Yeah,
Do you want
I
to
think
like?
so.
So you want to vote on the censure right now, or like you want to table the censure?
So the problem is, if we were to reopen it, we'd have to go through the same procedures again.
Yeah. So you want to postpone the censure? Because if we were to vote on it now and we're supposed to like reconsider it, it would have to happen in the same meeting. But if we postpone it, then we can consider it again without having the whole entire thing.
Could we do like a conditional thing?
Yeah.
What do you mean conditional thing?
I mean,
Like
if it is within our powers, we'll award an absence or a half absence for this. If it's not, I mean, and we also vote on the censure as is, so like whatever way that goes. And then we also have a conditional thing added onto it. We could, right?
Like voting on the censure now and then adding a condition to voting on another measure at another meeting.
I was thinking of more like, if you like, say we go with like, okay, not guilty of the censure, but conditionally, if it's within the Rules and Ethics Committee's power, then a half absence will be awarded.
I guess.
I get it.
Okay.
This makes a little more sense, like procedurally, but I understand.
Like, you understand what I'm
Yeah.
suggesting? I don't know. I'm just saying.
Because like procedurally, I want to make things that our procedures are followed through and actually make sense, you know, and not just throwing motions out willy-nilly. Senator Mia.
I gave a suggestion. Hear it or don't hear it. Not.
I actually like kind of agree with that.
So basically, postponing the actual censure until next meeting.
So, all right, can we agree now that when we meet next meeting, we will just be voting?
Yes.
There will be no deliberations.
Yeah.
Actually, there'll be deliberations, but they will not be
5 minutes.
There'll be 5. Let's do this right now. That's a good idea. I don't even know what this is considered,
There's
but
36 seconds, so you want to end deliberation?
yeah, sure.
Yes.
But sorry, that was a little aggressive.
I'm just trying, I want to make sure
I'm like so
I have
into this
all
right now.
of
I'm dialed
this written down. So we are not moving into a vote. Deliberations are over.
Do you want to
any
extend?
motions?
To extend.
Just so it's like on the record that we're still
Sure,
talking
yeah,
during
yeah.
deliberations.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move to extend time for deliberations by unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Any objections?
What?
Okay. That motion passes.
So
Okay.
I think that we could set 5 minutes on whenever
Yeah.
and say, hey, like, this is what we heard from the secretaries, this is what we heard from whoever we need to talk to legally. Maybe we'll even get a bill passed. Who knows? Hypothetically. We should do it. We should do it. And yeah, I think that would be a really good plan of action right now, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah. Okay. Madam Chair, I have a motion.
Yes.
I move.
Are
that-
we done with deliberations?
Yes. I move that at the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Rules and Ethics Committee, that there be 5 minutes reserved for deliberation on a censure.
And the decision, of course.
And the decision. By unanimous consent.
Game day.
I also have one more motion.
The decision. Okay. Does anyone object to that?
So before I make the motion, would you guys be amenable to saying that should the Senate secretaries, until the Senate secretaries, did you just want to leave it? Okay.
I mean, I think we all pretty much agree on this.
We're gonna have to come to a decision at the next meeting.
Madam Chair, of another motion. I move to postpone the censure against member Johnny Liu to the next regularly scheduled committee by unanimous consent.
Hearing no objections, that motion passes, and we will do the rest of our business at our next meeting. I adjourn this meeting at 12:05 p.m. When should we have our next meeting? So we're like
So
Oh,
on top of it.
You're so right, though. I was like, okay.
Do we want to do Tuesday?
If you do Tuesday, budget has actual bills to review now. And we're already like going to be strapped for time. So if you guys want to do it earlier on Tuesday, if you guys are available.
I'm not available.
I'm free.
Like, I'm free at like 4 p.m.
I'm free from like.
I'm free from 2 to 5.
I'm free from 2 to
I don't have
No
class
way.
on Tuesday, so like, just say a time.
Oh
I'm
no,
free from-
3 to 5. I have a I have a dentist appointment that was like from an emergency. So
I can do from 1 to
We should have
2:30.
midnight meetings.
midnight.
Marston?
Post-Senate?
Marston.
Oh my
Marston?
gosh, stop, please.
Take advantage of our, do the full 24-hour library.
So true though.
Not opposed.